This canto is called The Debate of Love and Death. Savitri representing love in the face of this power of negativity. And she has told him, you have been speaking truth, but I'm answering to you. You are giving the kind of truth that is destructive, that slays. I'm answering to you with the truth that saves. And we are now reading Savitri's answer to that, all these arguments of death. And she is beginning to tell him about the creation of the world, how we should understand it. That God wrapped his head, he disguised himself in the cowl, in the hood of matter, and he took his stand on nothingness and nescience, and started this creation. So the power, the creative power of the Supreme made matter the body of the bodiless. The divine is beyond all forms and bodies, but he can choose, he has chosen to enter into all these different forms. So I'm going to read on from line 44 on page 622. With that action of the supreme conscious force, then infant and dim, the eternal mights awoke. In inert matter breathed a slumbering life. In a subconscient life, mind lay asleep. In waking life, it stretched its giant limbs to shake from it the torpor of its drowse. A senseless substance quivered into sense. The world's heart commenced to beat, its eyes to see. In the crowded, dumb vibrations of a brain, thought fumbled in a ring to find itself, discovered speech, and fed the new-born word that bridged with spans of light the world's ignorance. In waking mind, the thinker built his house. A reasoning animal willed and planned and sought. He stood erect among his brute compeers. He built life new, measured the universe, opposed his fate, and wrestled with unseen powers, conquered and used the laws that rule the world, and hoped to ride the heavens and reach the stars, a master of his huge environment. Now, through mind's windows stares the demigod, hidden behind the curtains of man's soul. He has seen the unknown, looked on truth's veilless face. A ray has touched him from the eternal sun. Motionless, voiceless, in foreseeing depths, he stands awake in supernature's light and sees a glory of arisen wings and sees the vast descending might of God.
In sun and dim, the eternal might awoke. In inner matter, breathed a slumbering light. In a subconscious life, mind lay asleep. In waking life, in stretched its giant limbs to shake from it the torpor of its head, drowse, a senseless substance
Quivered
into sense. The world's heart commences to beat, its eyes to see. In the crowd, dumb vibrations of a brain, thought humbled in a ring to fight itself, discovered speech and fed the newborn world that breached with spans of life the world's ignorance.
So that's just one sentence, and it's covered the whole of evolution. Because the eternal mights, the eternal powers woke up. But they woke up in the form of in a small baby form, infant, and dim, without much light. They made a start in matter, in unconscious matter. Matter is inert. It doesn't move by itself. Something has to move it, otherwise it stays the same. But hidden within that inert matter, there's the possibility, the potentiality of life. Life is sleeping. And of course the hallmark of life is breath. It's breathing. That special kind of energy which comes with the breath. But of course, as it begins to emerge, that subconscious life, also within that, mind is sleeping, the possibility of mind. And when life wakes up, what is this it? I think it is matter, stretched its giant limbs to shake off from it the torpor of its drowse. Torpor is when we're in a very, very heavy sleep. Perhaps we've been drugged, or we have a fever, so it's as if matter is in a state of torpor. It can't move properly. But through life, with life, it begins to wake up and to be able to move. This drowse, it's also this sleepiness. And with life too, this matter which doesn't have senses, but in a living form, in the physical form, in living matter, the power of the senses awakes. Even in the most primitive life form, there's the capacity of sensing, of these little single-celled creatures. They can feel, oh, there is light, I should go that way, or there is too much salt, I must stay away from that. They have a capacity of sense, and that's very, very characteristic, and that with the evolution of life, that sense capacity becomes much more complex and becomes even the basis of our thinking. The sense impressions are very, very important. So with this awakening of life, the world's heart started to beat, this beat of life, and it developed eyes that could see. And then something like a brain develops through the stimulus of these sense impressions, the crowded, dumb vibrations of a brain. Actually, what's going on in the physical brain is chemical reactions and electric impulses. So, vibrations, crowded, dumb vibrations of a brain. But somehow the eternal power of thought could use that. But it's also not able to use it very powerfully at first. Thought fumbled in a ring. Fumbling is what you do when your hands are not skillful and you can't do it right. No? And it goes round and round in a circle. You have the word for it in Dutch? When you try to get the key in the lock and you can't. No? Yeah, fumbling. Yes. So the thought was first of all fumbling and going around in a circle, trying to find itself. But eventually it developed the power of speech. And this is such an important faculty. In the Vedas they speak about vak, this power of the word, the power of speech. So once this develops, thinking as we know it becomes possible. This this faculty of the word, bridged with spans of light the world's ignorance. Speech allows communication. So the world's ignorance is spread out all over all the thinking forms. But if communication becomes possible, that's like building a bridge. And a bridge has a span, it spans a gap. So these are spans of light, of consciousness and awareness, spanning the world's ignorance. So how many lines is it?
10 lines.
Yes, it's just 10 lines. So that's quite a mastery of language, that he can give us the whole history of evolution in 10 beautiful lines.
So there is another mind called life mind. Here it says in
A subconscious life mind lay asleep. Yes. So if we really go into the philosophy of it, then in the Life Divine, Aurobindo explains to us that these principles of matter and life and mind are everywhere. And they mingle even, so that in matter there might even be a kind of matter consciousness, and a matter life. And in life there's the most material form of life, and then there's the life, and then there's a mentalized life. In Savitri, when we were reading about the evolution of life, he showed us these three levels. And similarly in mind, there's a very material mind, and there's a life mind, and there's a mental mind. So it is but here it's not life mind. It is in subconscious life, mind lay asleep. Yeah? Yeah. In life, mind is sleeping. But there is a life mind and a body mind and so on. So we'll go on, Bhavan.
In waking mind, the thinker built his house. A reasoning animal willed and planned and sought. He stood erect among his brute compeers. He built life new, measured the universe, opposed his fate and wrestled with unseen powers, conquered and used the laws that rule the world, and hoped to ride the heavens and reach the stars, a master of his huge environment.
So this is man, the mental being, the thinker. In this world of waking mind, the thinker built his house. And as a result of that, in the evolution, this reasoning animal, this human being, who has an animal body, but has the capacity, the mental capacity of reasoning and willing, making choices, looking into the future, planning and seeking, trying to find things and particularly knowledge. So this reasoning animal, he stands up straight. This is the characteristic of the human being, the human animal, to stand erect among his brute compeers. Your compeers are your equals, actually. So the animals are our equals, our companions, but they are still brutes. They have not developed the refinement and the complexity. So this thinking animal is able to build life new with the power of thinking and willing and planning. Many things have been changed. There's the natural form of life, but there's also the life that is manipulated and developed and expanded by man. And man has even been able to measure the universe, at least roughly. And the other thing that man has done, which the poor animals can't do, I noticed this, they can't oppose their fate. They may like to, they would like to be able to get through the door and go out, but unless there's somebody there to open the door, they can't do it. But man somehow can do that, fight against, be aware and fight against his fate, and wrestle, struggle with powers which can't be seen, invisible powers and influences. Man has been able to conquer and to use the laws that rule the world, the laws of physics and the laws of nature. And he's conceived this aspiration to be able to travel through space and reach the stars, and become the master of this huge environment, again the material universe. or at least the earth. So this is the next step in evolution. And then there's one more step that has actually been achieved, Martin.
Now, through mind's window stares the demigod, hidden behind the curtains of man's soul. He has seen the unknown, looked on truth's veilless face. A ray has touched him from the eternal sun, motionless, voiceless, in foreseeing depths. He stands awake in supernature's light and sees the glory of arisen wings and sees the vast descending might of God.
Perhaps we could say this is the development of the spiritual being. Using mind, the soul personality in us, stares out the demigod, the half-divine being that is hidden behind the curtains of man's soul. And that demigod, that divine being, is in contact with the truth. He has seen the unknown, looked on truth's veilless face. For mind, truth is always veiled. But there's a part in us which has access to the veilless face of the truth. So that being has been touched by a ray from the eternal sun, which is the origin of the manifestation. That demigod doesn't move, doesn't speak. He's there in the depths of our being, but he is foreseeing. He can look into the future and see what is to come, what is meant to come. He's also awake, aware in the light of supernature, not just super consciousness, but of what will be manifested in the future. And so he sees as if a glory of arisen wings, that the inner beings will be able to fly up into that light of supernature, and it foresees the vast descending might of God, the future possibility of a totally transformed divine world. And that is an actual reality, that's something that has happened. Aurobindo could say that because it had happened in him, that he could look and foresee the supramental descent.
The supernature is different from
There's always consciousness and nature, Purusha and Prakriti, or Shiva and Shakti, Ishvara, Ishvari. So there will be not only a super consciousness, or there is not only a super consciousness, there's also super nature.
O day, thou lookest on an unfinished word, assailed by thee, and of it road unsure, peopled by imperfect mind and ignorant life, and say, God is not, and all is vain.
So that's what she tells him. Your negative view is because you're looking at an unfinished world. It's as if you go and criticize the painter before he has finished his picture. Actually, you have no idea what it will look like when it's finished. The world is unfinished. This world is under attack by you, death, and it is unsure of its road, where it has to go. This world is peopled by imperfect minds and ignorant lives. That's all of us. And you're looking at that picture of the world as it seems now, and you say on this evidence that God doesn't exist and everything is illusion and in vain and useless and meaningless. Ganga Lakshmi.
How shall the child already be the man? Because he is infant, shall he never be? Because he is ignorant, shall he never learn?
So, good questions. No? The questions answer themselves. Yeah. Yeah. Shamala, would you read?
Okay. In a small fragile seed, a great tree lies. A tiny gene, a thinking being is shut. A little elephant in a little swarm. It grows and is a conqueror and a sage.
These are the miracles of life. No? Yes, sure. And of course here he's debating both sides. He states both the sides very, very clearly. But Savitri is giving us the truth that saves. If we can see things like this, that the world is unfinished, and that in small beginnings great things can lurk. First, the questions. You may look at a child and see how stupid and foolish he is and unskillful. But he's going to grow, no? He's not always going to stay like that. Yeah? Maybe he's ignorant at the beginning, but he can learn. He will learn. Human beings learn. So similarly, just as in the child, in the infant, in the baby, there are possibilities that we can't see now. It's the same with a seed. I think we have these beautiful teak trees, but the seed is very small. Hidden in that small seed, there's the possibility, the potentiality of that huge, beautiful tree. No? And then we've all got genes in our cells, and it's the gene that seems to be transmitted from the father to the mother and that then grows. So in that tiny gene, which is such a tiny little cell that we can't even see it, there is a thinking being, the potentiality of a thinking being. And that gene is a little element in a little sperm, in the seed that the father gives to the mother. And that sperm, that little element in that little sperm is going to grow, and it may grow up to be a mighty conqueror, a human being who is a powerful emperor, or a great sage, a great wise man. So we can't, just by looking at appearances, we can't tell what is hidden, what possibilities are hidden inside. So death, you see this unfinished world that's here, and you're saying, oh, it's all useless, it's a mess. Look what a mess it is. You don't know what possibility is hidden within it. Sergei.
Then wilt thou still of the gross mystery deny the occult spiritual world? Then wilt thou say there is no spirit, no God?
You know this word spew? It means spit or vomit. Are you, Death, are you going to spit out this mystic truth that is hidden there? Are you going to deny this hidden, mysterious, occult, spiritual miracle? When you see these things that are there in the physical world, are you still going to say that there's no spirit, no God? How could they happen otherwise?
In new materials, nature makes and says, he has invented speech, unveiled a world, something that waits beyond towards which she strives, something
surrounds her,
into which she grows, to uncover the spirit, to change back into God, to accept herself is her task.
To exceed herself is her transcendent task. This she is nature, mute, material nature, is waking up in these forms, in her creations, in human beings. So in human beings she has invented speech. And she has unveiled a will. The will was there from the beginning, but in the plants and the animals, in matter, it is veiled. But in human beings, that will can begin to express itself. And beyond all this, there's something more waiting. That mute material nature, evolutionary nature, is striving, working hard for something beyond, something that's waiting ahead of us. And there's something surrounding her, a whole world of possibilities, and she's growing into that. She has a mission. She has to uncover, to reveal the spirit which is dwelling within everything. She has to change back into God. That's where she has come from, this mute material nature. God veiled his head in matter's mask. She has to change back into that divine possibility that she is. Her task is to constantly go beyond herself, to exceed herself, is her transcendent task. It's a marvelous, high, supreme task given to her from beyond the creation. One of the philosophers who put it into words said that to be human, to be truly human, means to be always trying to be better than you are. And that's because of this evolutionary drive and urge, this will which has been there in the creation from the very beginning. Uda, you would read?
In God cancels the world, beginning to be steadily, it travels towards the manifest God. Our imperfection towards the perfection towards the body is the
chrysalis
of the soul. The infinite holds the finite in its arms. Time travels towards the believed eternity.
Yes. So, the world began to be hidden within God. Before he revealed any of it, it began to be already in the conception of the Lord. And tardily, slowly, gradually, it's traveling towards the full manifestation of divine possibility. So we, in our imperfection, we are toiling, we're trying to be more and more perfect and to reach perfection. It reminds me that in the beginning of Auroville in 1968, the charter had to be translated into many languages, and one of the languages it had to be translated into was Russian, which was a communist country at that time. So somebody from the ashram went and met the Russian ambassador, and he said, we can't have the sentence, it begins, one must be a willing servitor of the divine consciousness. He said, we can't have that. We don't believe in God. So this man who sent to him, he must have been inspired. He said, but I think you believe in perfection, don't you? And he said, yes, of course we believe in perfection. So he said, could we put instead, in your language, we could put the perfect consciousness? And they said, yes, that'll be fine. So that's true of all human beings. Our imperfection is toiling, trying to reach always greater perfection. And this body that we have is the chrysalis of a soul. A chrysalis is a stage in the development of an insect. For example, with butterflies. Butterflies lay eggs, and the eggs develop into caterpillars. And then the caterpillars eat lots of leaves and put out silk and spin themselves a cocoon. And inside that cocoon, the actual caterpillar disappears. It dissolves into liquid full of DNA. But there it forms something. And eventually it opens up that cocoon and out comes the butterfly. So I think the chrysalis stage is that cocoon. If I'm right. Somebody can look it up in a biology textbook and tell me. The chrysalis. It's this stage where it doesn't look anything like the thing that's going to be. It doesn't give any clue what will emerge. So this body doesn't really indicate the soul that will emerge from it. What is limitless, what is infinite, is holding, protecting, embracing all these limited forms of the world in its arms. And this mystery of time, if you start to think about time, it's so mysterious. What is time, really? It seems to be this process of things moving in a certain direction. So time is moving towards infinity. So these things which we think of as opposites, time and infinity and eternity, finite and infinite, they are forms of each other. So I think we'll stop there for today. No?
Infant and dim, the eternal mights awoke. In inert matter breathed a slumbering life. In a subconscient life, mind lay asleep. In waking life, it stretched its giant limbs to shake from it the torpor of its drowse. A senseless substance quivered into sense. The world's heart commenced to beat, its eyes to see. In the crowded, dumb vibrations of a brain, thought fumbled in a ring to find itself, discovered speech, and fed the newborn word that bridged with spans of light the world's ignorance. In waking mind, the thinker built his house. A reasoning animal willed and planned and sought. He stood erect among his brute compeers. He built life new, measured the universe, opposed his fate and wrestled with unseen powers, conquered and used the laws that rule the world, and hoped to ride the heavens and reach the stars, a master of his huge environment. Now, through mind's windows, stares the demigod, hidden behind the curtains of man's soul. He has seen the unknown, looked on truth's veilless face. A ray has touched him from the eternal sun. Motionless, voiceless, in foreseeing depths, he stands awake in supernature's light, and sees a glory of arisen wings, and sees the vast descending might of God. O death, thou look'st on an unfinished world, assailed by thee and of its road unsure, peopled by imperfect minds and ignorant lives, and sayest, God is not, and all is vain. How shall the child already be the man? Because he is infant, shall he never grow? Because he is ignorant, shall he never learn? In a small, fragile seed, a great tree lurks. In a tiny gene, a thinking being is shut. a little element in a little sperm, it grows and is a conqueror and a sage. Then wilt thou spew out death, God's mystic truth, deny the occult spiritual miracle? Still wilt thou say there is no spirit, no God? A mute material nature wakes and sees. She has invented speech, unveiled a will. Something there waits beyond, towards which she strives. Something surrounds her, into which she grows. To uncover the spirit, to change back into God, to exceed herself is her transcendent task. In God concealed, the world began to be. Tardily it travels towards manifest God. Our imperfection towards perfection toils. The body is the chrysalis of a soul. The infinite holds the finite in its arms. Time travels towards revealed eternity.